$25 billion sounds like a lot of money, but Jerry Georgatos says it's a gross overestimate. Mr. Georgatos argues the real figure of Indigenous government spending is around $1 billion.
What they've done with this $25 billion is included spends that don't belong in there, and they've also included the normal spending on all Australian citizens as part of the Indigenous disadvantage spend. So anything that's spent on an Indigenous person has been collated as an Indigenous spend on disadvantage. That's wrong.
The Productivity Commission figures include $3.2 billion on Indigenous law and order and corrective services. That's a disgrace, according to Georgatos.
$3.2 billion. What they've dropped in there is basically a corrective services budget. Incarcerating people, public safety, law and order issues, that's not a spend on Indigenous disadvantage. Those two spends are shameful and disgraceful to have been included in there.
Then there's the $3.1 billion put down as being spent every year on Indigenous education. But per student, Georgatos argues there's little difference between what's spent on Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal children.
Most of that is normal spending entitled to any Australian students, child use in education or training, and that shouldn't have been dropped in there. That's part of the normal spend, and any other spend that's part of that for Indigenous disadvantage is actually a catch-up spend.
And there's a host of other areas where the productivity figures are misleading, according to Georgatos. Of the $25 billion supposedly spent every year, that includes $12 billion allocated for all Australians, so that should be subtracted for a start, according to the WikiLeaks candidate. And he says the figure of over $44,000 per every Aboriginal person simply isn't credible. Land rights campaigner Tiger Bales has supported the claims. Liddle, NITV News.